Is anybody taking bets on how long it takes before he gets rugged?
I got about 20 minutes.
I was doing 25.
Okay. So what is it, like over under 23?
Over under 23, yeah. I think that's
crazy.
a safe bet.
I'm definitely taking the under.
Yeah, I'm taking the under.
Tom?
I'm gonna have to write a contract to take these bets at some point.
All right, I think we're ready to rock and roll here, guys. Tom, thanks for joining the community spaces. Big shout out to our EU UK folks here as well too. I know we usually do this at a time that's not super friendly to the global audience, but very excited to do these, and I'm hoping we can do more going forward. I know there's a ton of folks who want to talk to Link, and I know that a ton of other folks are in the UK from the team as well too. So we're super excited to have Tom as like our inaugural global guest here. For folks that don't know, Tom is one of the founders of CoolCats, along with Link, Elu, and Cron, here from the very beginning. And he's kind of always been the mastermind, the brains behind the blockchain tech, the smart contracts, and a lot of the work behind Cooltopia as well too. So we've been itching to get Tom on this spaces as our guest to talk through a number of things, whether it's what he's been up to recently, some of the game strategy and vision that's either stayed the same or evolved over the course of the past year. Gameplay criticisms too. We want to have an open conversation about what's going well, what's not going well within Cooltopia. Talk about cool pets and cool friends. No, I'm unofficially calling them cool friends, but the friends of Blue Cat, and then just Tom's general state of mind going forward here. So with that, welcome, Tom.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a number of other people on stage here as well too. So guys, feel free to jump in with questions as well too. I know that we have a long list of questions here. I can't take credit for like any of these. These are all from amazing community members who've either posted it in Discord or posted it on Twitter or DM'd us specifically across the key top, many of the members, including some of the council members here on the spaces here. So everything we will read off here. Some of it very direct. Some of it we just want to have an honest conversation. But before we get into some of the meat of it, just want to hear. Tom, you're obviously a founder. You spent a ton of time getting Cooltopia, the blockchain game, up in the January, February, and then obviously in that Q1 timeframe. What are you currently doing? What would you say is your role and responsibility for CoolCats today?
So my role kind of hasn't changed that much, really. I mean, I'm mostly responsible for kind of coding out the Solidity stuff. My team, my Solidity team, we obviously go back and forth on different ways to produce the code most efficiently. I mean, sometimes we fall short of the mark. It's, we're only human. Also, as a founder, we work together to kind of come up with the next thing or strategize on bits we're building. And that's, true for Cooltopia as well. Like, we kind of came up with the concept together as founders. And then, wherever we want to move to the next thing within CoolCats, exactly the same. We kind of talk through it as founders, as a team. And obviously we have other people in the team now as well. So we've got other people who've got expertise that we can bring in to talk through things. Gotcha. It's very collaborative.
Gotcha. What's sort of been the biggest challenge for you in running a company after year one here, reflecting back?
Oh, so this is kind of crazy in terms of running a company. So I'm not new to running a company. I've been building websites, games, like companies for like easy 15 plus years. But in terms of challenges, like the Web3 space, it's so different to anything I've ever done, because for one, it's a very innovative space. Everything, as you all know, moves insanely fast, way faster than any kind of business I've ever been in before. And because we're kind of breaking new ground, sometimes the things we do, people praise us for them endlessly. And other times, as you all know, things we do, as innovative as they might be, people absolutely hate. So because we're kind of like exploring this all kind of together, there's hit and misses. And I think one of the most challenging things is being able to accept when you have missed the mark and then figure out exactly why it's gone wrong. Because as I said, this is a new space. So things that might work in Web 2 do not work in Web 3. And so learning that's a pretty hard thing to learn, just as people as well, because you can't please everyone, but as much as you want to.
Yeah, what's hit you the hardest in terms of something that you thought would be a hit, but ended up just not resonating with holders and the community?
I think one of the biggest things was, so when we started designing Cooltopia, I'll refer it to how we do it kind of internally, like the web game. When we started kind of designing the web game, as founders, we are all gamers. Like we've all grown up on RuneScape and World of Warcraft and Neopets and things like Gaia Online. Like most of you probably won't know Gaia Online, but have a quick Google. It's like an avatar building thing based on like forums. It's very, very old. But we're so we all grew up with those kind of games, obviously Pokemon and stuff as well. And one of the first things we did after we minted CoolCats is we were really talking about we'd love to build a game. We'd love to build our own kind of Pokemon. And so we came up with these like all these ideas and mechanics. Like it's obviously evolved over time from the very, very early days, early designs. And I'm not going to go, I'm sure there's going to be more questions. I can talk about this a bit more. But one of the key things that we came up with was grinding is a viable game mechanic. It's actually, we're all used to playing World of Warcraft, and there's a lot of grinding in World of Warcraft. So one of the core mechanics that we came up for with Cooltopia was like cool cats could claim milk. And the idea was every cool cat would have a cool pet, and you'd use the milk from your cool cat to accelerate the development of your cool pet. And then people who had pets, it would be a time investment. It would be a grind. We thought everyone would be accepting of that because we've all played games before. But of course, in the Web3 space, as we've learned, nobody wants to grind, or very few people. There are some people who love the game, but there are very few people want to grind. Mostly people want to click button, make money. So, I mean, that's obviously like a very simplistic view of it, but that was probably our biggest hit and miss, is grind, that time investment. And also the fact that we thought, okay, people with a cat, they're going to take their milk and they're going to actually start to accelerate their pet. Obviously, a lot of us know what actually happened was people got their cat, immediately sold their pet, and now you've got these people who claiming milk, and they don't really have any kind of investment in the game, or at least in the early game. And so they just sell the milk, or they just stockpile it. So I think that was probably the biggest miss. Yeah, from my point of view, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's surprised. Yeah, we could tell it surprised the team. I think honestly, it surprised the number of holders as well too, because I think we kind of were surprised at how unengaged people were with the game, and how it even surprised ourselves how disengaged we were with the game at times. Do you think that's correlated to a bit with your engagement with the community in that sense? I know back in the day you used to write a ton of Medium posts and social media. You'd always have your things Tom's doing today kind of thing that we all loved. We noticed like a step back after kind of the game launch, probably a lot due to just being so busy with resolving the issues and things like that. But I'm curious, kind of like, is there a correlation between like the challenges that have been faced and you kind of like not being as present as you used to be in the same way?
Well, so I mean, I think it's a common misconception that my role was solely built around like I have full control of like how the game is built and everything. I don't. Like, yes, I'm doing the contracts, but we put proposals forward to each other and we talk them through, and then we'd be like, yes, we all sign off on that, or no, or whatever. So it's probably worth clearing that up.
Definitely.
And so what's also interesting is I think a lot of people look at Cooltopia and they think, yeah, there's 1 or 2 contracts running. Right now, let me just check the code. I'll tell you exactly how many contracts currently run in Cooltopia. There are, I'm just going to count them real quick. There's about 25, 28, 8 contracts running, and they all run together and they all talk to each other. And obviously we're paying for the gas on all of those, and the whole system is kind of governed by our back-end system, which, by the way, like anytime we ever want to add something to the system, has to go through a whole Gnosis signing. It's a whole thing. It's a pain. From our point of view, it's an absolute pain, but from a security perspective, it's great. But yeah, so there's like, considering how much time and effort people put into a single contract, and we've literally got like a massive stack of contracts all talking to each other, my time is mostly spent working through getting all these contracts to function as one fluid system.
That's very,
and, you know, also researching like new things that we can add to the next contracts to improve performance or whatever else. Because that's the other thing about the whole system that we've built, is the contracts are interchangeable. So if for any reason we launch something, and this actually happened recently with the nursery contract, you guys remember that we launched it, it was up for like an hour or two, and then we pulled it down, and then a new contract came up. All we actually do is we decouple that contract, write a new one, plug it back in where the old one was, and it's all functioning because it talks to the whole system. So building that system out wasn't a easy feat. And also, a lot of my time, like I said, goes into research, because I started coding Solidity back in 2021 in like March, just like learning it. And now, you know, we've got this massive 20-odd contract system. So from my perspective, ton of research, absolute insane amount of research to get all this stuff working. So when you don't see me kind of as active on like doing posts on Medium, it's mostly because I'm doing my own research. I'm looking into other projects. And same for, I realized as much as the community love my daily what Tom's doing posts, they were also quite detrimental to my mental health, because it means that I've constantly got to keep you guys up to date with what I'm doing, which means there are times when I do actually just have to take a few days to just research something. And people don't want to see researching question mark for 5 days straight. So I kind of have to try to mingle stuff in there, and I don't want to make stuff up either. So I actually want to be true to what I'm doing. So I've just kind of eased off on that to give myself that kind of mental space to do the work I need to do without feeling that additional pressure of having to keep giving the community those little tidbits. Like I do want to bring it back to a lesser degree, but that's the reason you don't see them as much.
Definitely. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think all the work that you do around the contracts, I don't think you and the team will ever get enough credit that you guys deserve for all of this magic that's happening behind the scenes. I know some people allude to it at times with, these Polygon NFTs, they're automatically hidden in my folder. There's all these things, we don't have to pay for gas. These are all things that are groundbreaking and just amazingly forward in just mainstream tech. And I think for those, it's kind of the if you know kind of thing. For the people that do know and appreciate the work you guys have done, can't say enough good things about all that back end work.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, the whole team. It's not just me, by the way. It's not just me. There is a whole team goes on behind the whole back end stuff, because not only do the contracts have to talk to each other, we also have to listen to everything that's going on and track it on the blockchain so that we can relay that information in a efficient way to what you're viewing on the front end. And we pre-check stuff so that we don't have to keep firing stuff off to the contract. So we track that on a back-end server, and there's a whole load of stuff going on there. And Adam, like Grandpa Bacon, has been doing some amazing work there as well. And then we've got like a whole front-end team, which are just wizards with React and everything. And yeah, I've got to give credit to the whole team for everything they've done.
Absolutely. If we spend a few minutes just on the game team itself, can you break down for us kind of what the gaming structure looks like in terms of the team? We know there's Skiz involved with Coolverse building out a separate platform, and then there's Cooltopia. But what does the gaming team structure actually look like?
I mean, you've kind of got it. Like Skiz and his team are working on like the Coolverse, as people tag it, and that does work somewhat independent of the web game. We try not to cross paths too much, because there's there are some very different systems in play, and that would just get things very confusing. So yeah, it is pretty much two separate teams. We do crossover as and when needed to help to make things run as efficiently as possible. But yeah, it is pretty separate.
Gotcha. And I think a exciting area, but also a concern for a lot of folks has also been, or confusion as well, is what went into the decision on kind of creating two separate games. And I think the reason people ask that is, you know, one is just curiosity. What factor went into that? What value does having two games have? But also, is there a risk of dividing the team's resource attentions by having two separate products in the gaming world?
So that's an interesting point to bring up. I don't think we've ever actually discussed this, at least not to my recollection. But when we started Cool Cats, we were like, okay, well, soon after Mint, we're just like, okay, so obviously, so for those who don't know, Cool Cats started originally as like a weekend project. We did not expect it to explode. We just were dabbling in Web3 and suddenly boom. So we're like, oh, actually, we got to build more to this. So we were like, well, we'd love to do like a fully immersive game where you can just run around and play with your friends and collect stuff and whatever else. But we thought, well, that type of game literally could take years to build, and we can't just go dark for years. So we're thinking it'd be great if we could build something much simpler to have as that kind of intermediate to say, okay, here's something that you guys can play with in the meantime while someone else in the background is building this awesome system, this awesome game. And that's the bare bones, design. Was we just didn't want to go dark. And at that time, we were very new to the Web3 space, and I think even Bored Apes at that point was pretty new, relatively, and we didn't know what was going to be in store for us moving forward, or for the space moving forward. So we're trying to do best efforts to make sure something was there, so everyone just didn't get bored, basically, and try to give at least some value. Which for us, in our mind, as I said, we were kind of building out like RuneScape, World of Warcraft, but as a much simpler kind of web version before something more tangible came out.
So do you see Coolverse eventually replacing Cooltopia, or are they in perpetuity kind of existing together for all?
Oh,
yeah.
There's we do have plans to cover both, like, because it all depends on market movement as well, right? And the community sentiment and stuff like that. So we've got we now have this web system where, as people know, you can come to it, you can log in with Ethereum and do Polygon transactions. We pay for all the gas. That's really powerful because we could do like an airdrop through that system. We could do whatever we want. Raffle, we've already done a raffle. We could do competitions, like you name it. We can just plug stuff into the system and we can run it and pay for it. And so that kind of thing will always be useful to us. That's a very amazing tool. There's loads of different pieces to that tool that we can kind of bring to the forefront as and when we need them. But we've also got the kind of this game being built, which you guys haven't seen it yet, and what can happen with that? Obviously we've got plans. I don't want to divulge too much or give too much alpha away, but both of them can definitely exist in the same space, like the Cooltopia, Cool Cats. And they definitely both exist within Cool Cats. Potentially, you might have people who really like using a web interface. They don't want to load up a 3D game. For that, we could keep aspects of Cooltopia. And then you're going to have those people who just don't want to interact with Cooltopia, who just want to go, the web game, and just want to go play in the Coolverse. So we're in a position where we can kind of turn stuff on and off according to what our community wants and what the market's asking for as well.
Yeah, I think everyone's really excited to see or get a sneak peek of Coolverse. So hopefully we get that relatively soon. Well, fingers crossed on that. Are we getting Otherside avatars?
I'm not going to speak about any of that. sorry. There's some stuff that I just can't talk about, so I'm not going to speak to that.
No worries. I think Hawkward had a question.
Yeah, and like I do want to preface like this because I want people to realize how hard it is to be in your kind of position. Y'all, like you said, launched a weekend project and it turned into something so much bigger than like any one team can even control. It kind of is a hybrid project between a company and a community now, and so I just want to remind people to kind of like keep that in mind as we're grilling you really hard about these questions. But so like in May and kind of like after NFT NYC, the team decided to shift their focus back to like IP and branding. And I think that caused a lot of concerns about, oh, what's happening to the game now? Like, are we going to kind of like ditch the game? Are Cool Pets going to kind of take a back seat role? So like, yeah, how has that like shift in focus impacted the roadmap for like, you know, the unspoken roadmap for Cooltopia and Coolverse?
So it's an interesting point. I think it's also worth mentioning that like Cooltopia at NFT NYC was very much a display of this is what Cool Cats branding can look like. So, you know, if we do a really cool like IP drive, like that's the kind of thing that we can put together. So it's just kind of a representation of how powerful the brand and the IP can be. And so it was kind of a natural step to shift over to, well, not necessarily shift, but to step over to saying, right, we do have this IP focus. And I know a lot of people are confused about what does an IP focus actually mean, but I'm not going to dive deep into the specific points, but I'll talk more in kind of like hypotheticals. So if you imagine, I'll talk about Disney actually. Disney's a really good way for us to kind of talk about this. Imagine like way back when Walt Disney comes to you and gives you a picture of this mouse. At that current point in time, that mouse is absolutely worthless because he hasn't yet drawn the cartoons. There's no film. There's no like big brand attached to it. And then one day you find out a film's come out, and suddenly you've got all these kids just ranting and raving about like how amazing Mickey Mouse is. I mean, pardon me, this is definitely not historically accurate. So just an example. Suddenly your picture of Mickey Mouse has immense value because there is a huge audience now that want that. Fast forward to like now, obviously, if you had that original picture, not one, you'd be very old unless it was passed down to the family. But two, if you had IP rights to that and you were able to slap that onto hoodies or make vinyls or whatever, and you now have an audience that want that. They want to buy that from you. And that's one potential route that like Cool Cats can go down. I'm not, like I said, at the moment I'm talking hypotheticals. I'm not giving away any alpha or anything, but that's like one way that you can think about the power of IP with all of these, not only Cool Cats, but other projects that are like pushing IP as well. That's the kind of power that your tokens can hold for you. You don't even have to rely on the project necessarily marketing something for you or giving you direct value by saying, yeah, we're going to do this specifically for you. Not that I'm saying Cool Cats wouldn't, I'm just saying this is where other angles of value. So, you know, the Good Night's cat can end up on like 1 million hoodies that all sell because the Good Night's cat happens to be featured in an episode that we create in like a series or something or a TV show. So that kind of talks about the IP, that the way the IP kind of shifts can start pointing. In terms of Cool Pets, don't worry. Like I know at the moment it feels like Cool Pets are this kind of thing that we push to the back. It's hiding in the corner. We know that Cool Pets need to have that kind of love very, very shown in a big way. And there's steps that we can easily take to kind of start moving towards that as we kind of move towards like this big IP push as well. So definitely plans in place for us to help shine a light more on Cool Pets that isn't dependent upon the game, either the web game or the Coolverse. There's a lot of different things we can do. One kind of more short-term thing that would be possible, and again, this is hypotheticals because I don't want to give anyway like any alpha or anything, but as we want to build out our audience, there's things we can do like we can go back a bit to our Web 2 roots, which is, as you might know right now, if you say to someone, by the way, I've got this really cool picture of a cat, they might be like, oh, that's brilliant. And then you're like, well, it's an NFT. And they're like, well, you've destroyed an entire rainforest. So obviously there's those concerns, and I'm not trying to make light of them. Just highlighting the fact that some people don't like NFTs for that specific reason, and it becomes a stigma when you're trying to grow an audience, not just cool cats, but the NFT audience, the wider NFT audience. But if you can get people to engage and relate to cool cats, for example, and they don't even know it's an NFT, you're onto a winner there. So if you can bring out kids' books, if you can bring out mobile games, like we've all seen, and we've probably all passed a tablet or a phone to a child, and it's like a coloring game or a dress-up game or something like that. Like immediately, you have potentially a huge audience, because those dress-up games, some of them have got like 50 million downloads. Like imagine suddenly you've got all these kids walking into Target and suddenly recognizing a cool cat plushie happens to be your cool cat, because there was a deal that we put in place, and your cool cat's there, and bam, like they want it. They don't even care it's an NFT anymore. They don't even know it's an NFT. They've just seen it on their game. Can be cool pets too. There's no reason it can't be cool pets either. So sorry, it's a very long answer. There's like a lot of bases to cover.
It's good, you know, because I think a lot of us were concerned about like if we are dialing back on the game or not. What kind of utility is there for the cool pets holders, and like what value are they getting from the ecosystem? But I did want to kind of circle back a little bit and talk about some of the gameplay criticisms that have been floating around. I guess I'll just follow up with like, is pet battling and like the stuff that was initially teased about like the housing and like the stuff currently seen on the website, is that still like moving forward as planned, or are you guys back to the drawing board with some stuff? Like either way, like I think it's fine, but I'd love to hear kind of like what direction you're pivoting.
So like pet battling, we definitely that's definitely on our roadmap. We love the idea of it, and I think it really plays well for all the pets. I know I for one want to be playing a game where all my different pets can battle, and whatever attributes I've got could potentially relate to attacks and stuff. Like that's just going to be fun. Like whether or not there's any actual earning that can be had there in terms of like milk or any other tokens, like honestly as a user I don't know I necessarily care. I just want to play with my pet. Have some fun, maybe challenge a friend to a battle, and like there's so many ideas behind that. But like Coolverse, building like a whole pet battling system is no small feat, because you've got to get all the balancing right, and that honestly takes a very long time. So it's something that has to be done very mindfully and very carefully. But yeah, we definitely still want to do that. And housing is something we love the idea of housing, because we've got all these collectibles as NFTs, even all the stuff that we've been given out like prior to the launch of the web game. We've always said it's going to have utility. Those things could exist as trophies in your house, like literally parts of your house, even just theme a house is a particular way. And I think people like to collect, so adding that as things that could exist within a game system, certainly, yeah, we definitely still want to do that. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's definitely shedding some light on stuff. So I think what you said earlier about grinding was interesting, because like I've been a gamer my whole life. I've hatched thousands of eggs in Pokemon just driving a bike back and forth. So like I know the grind, but I think there is, especially to like in Web3 to like hold people's attention, you need to like incentivize them to grind in a certain way. And I think one of the criticisms right now is that people aren't adequately incentivized to like go through these more grindy actions, because they're not really sure what the end result is. So like what's your take on these like concerns about people feeling like they don't really understand why they're playing the game to get the trophies from the boss quests, or that they're not sure why they were gathering other than you actually told us that it was going to be for the boss quest, which was awesome. We love to like know, but it kind of seemed like like we're just inching along and we're not knowing the next steps, so it's kind of hard to grind for something we don't really know what we're grinding for. So yeah, like what's your response to that?
Oh no, I understand that. That's kind of. I understand that from a gamer's point of view. It's nice to know what you're grinding for. Like mostly, you grind with a goal in mind, and there's definitely a misstep on our behalf, which is not giving you the next step in the process. With regards, so I kind of thinking initially, you can kind of see it with the cat gathering and then the boss quests, because we dropped the cat gathering, that was out for like, I think it was like a week or two, might be a bit longer, and the boss quests came out, so you could actually see, oh, I can use these items for this. And I believe we actually talked about it a little bit in the spaces, it might have been a town hall prior to dropping the boss quest, just to let everyone know that's what's happening. So yeah, I can understand from a gamer's perspective, like, or just generally a user's perspective, it's nice to know what the grind is for. So that is something we do want to rectify as we add other features, for sure, in the future, so that same thing doesn't happen again.
Awesome. Yeah, I just love seeing, like, I'm totally fine letting people make mistakes. I think it's just how we move on from them is what really matters. And you know, I've been in blockchain games that still need to get their stuff together, but you know, it's a dedicated community. We have this like common goal to see the vision through.
Tom, if I can ask an honest question on that, where do you think the breakdown is there? Is it in the strategy around like what to communicate out to folks, like in terms of like, I guess why are we in that pattern necessarily? Because of kind of just the people say like trophy Ponzonomics, right? Like without knowing what the next piece is. When you say we need to kind of get better at that, what do you think needs to be fixed?
So, I mean, there's two things. Well, I mean, it could be a combination actually, right? So either we drop something like boss quests and then a post to tell you, by the way, the trophies are going to be used for this, or we drop the boss quests in tandem with a feature that actually utilizes them. So you can see without having to read an article. If, for example, we're in if there's a bit of a tech lull because we've got a lot of stuff to work through, because we're not only working through obviously the game at the same time, like we might be writing contracts for something else that's going to be happening a little bit later. So it takes up time, same for the back end team and the front end team, like building things out. So if we're in a kind of a little bit of a lull, then yeah, we can release an article or at least something to say it will be used for this and kind of pass that information on. I think what we're experiencing right now is or at least to date, is that we've released like a function and we thought, okay, yeah, we'll be releasing the next bit relatively soon. So that kind of, there won't be a long wait. But as we've seen with like cat gathering, even a 2-week wait's too long. So we do need to, yeah, I think the disconnect is just understanding the, I guess, tolerance for that kind of delay within the community, and we just need to just get it better at saying, okay, here's the thing, and here's what you use it for. Done.
Hey,
That
Tom.
makes sense.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Hey, Timo, jump in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, and Tom, thank you so much for jumping in on this too. I mean, I feel like so many of the folks in the space do remember. I was glad that Goodnight brought this up, of the kind of good old days, right? Of chatting and growing, and I think that's what so much of us are, in one way or another, trying to get back to. But obviously the company has scaled. Like you said, it's a weekend project that turned into a global IP, which is not something that a lot of folks have been faced with before or dealt with. So I do want to commend you and the team on hearing us out and, growing these operations, whether it's the scale of the team or whether it's things like the council where we're able to kind of more effectively voice that feedback. I just wanted to say thank you for that first and foremost.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, yeah. One of the big things that's kind of been referenced in this conversation and then just market-wide is this idea of a value proposition, right? So whether that's the floor price, the initial purchase price, continuing value of the NFT, et cetera. People at least in the current market, more often now see cats, pets, or other NFTs even just as financial investments rather than this kind of emotional investment. And as a result, an experience like kind of the web experience, the web game right now, may not necessarily satisfy those people. So facing towards the game and kind of mirroring Hawkward's comments, the somewhat kind of mysterious, vague boss quest rewards and items being gathered seem really interesting, but that compared to an initial expectation of what I guess I grew up expecting as a game or even a web game in that traditional sense is kind of crossed against the actual experience right now. And it seems like that's kind of missed the value mark for a lot of holders, especially considering prices that folks jumped in to access that game. And so I look at it almost like comparing cars, where somebody who knows what you do on the back end and the incredible work that you and the team have done, 28 contracts all talking to each other, is totally insane. But that's notable only to an enthusiast or someone who knows it. So same in the car industry, right? Like, I like cars, I think they're interesting, but I'll point out something and name off all these specs, and my wife sees it as something with 4 wheels that gets you from A to Z and doesn't really notice the difference. So do you think that disconnect from kind of the average gamer or consumer's expectation rather than the enthusiast or more knowledgeable person and kind of technical person's experience ended up hurting the game? And then alternatively, how do you kind of not squish that desire to want to keep innovating and building behind the scenes tech if the reception is always like, yeah, it's fine, but I'm more care about the end result rather than behind the scenes stuff?
So that's that's a really interesting point. So with what we've got right now, obviously we've definitely still got the kind of game that we wanted to build that has the kind of grinding. And it's, as you pointed out, it's very apparent that most of the users are very, very much instant value gratification users. They just want to jump in and just get the value out almost immediately, which, to be honest, I don't blame them, because when you look at the space, especially right now, it's all about that instant value. A lot of people, as you said, they're just investors. They're not even necessarily gamers. They're people who may have come over from crypto that, that they've heard about all the money that can be made in NFTs. And so they just start pumping money into different things, expecting that return on investment very quickly. With games where there's grinding, that's not going to be a quick thing. And so the kind of your ROI, yeah, you're not getting back the ROI that you're expecting, because return on investment not only requires a financial investment, it requires a time investment with a grinding type of game. So kind of correcting for that's an interesting one, because it might be a case where we need to change some mechanics quite dramatically to account for that. Or we just need to get in a wider audience who are game orientated. And this is a struggle I think that the general NFT community is going to come across. A lot of people are starting pushing that gaming boat out. And somebody's got to do it. Obviously, Bored Apes is leading that. Hopefully, I think the whole industry right now is just hoping that Bored Apes are the ones who are able to crack the shell on that nut and just say, look, actually NFT gaming isn't that bad. You don't have to just do it for earning. You can also do it for pleasure, and that might create a flood of people coming into various other NFT games. If they're able to do that, that'd be great for everyone. But it's definitely a tricky thing to put a finger on what exactly is the right path. If we're gonna stay true to gaming, then we might just kind of keep focus on a Pokemon style type game, but have to adjust it so there is easier ROI, or at least more tangible ROI. But it's definitely a tricky one to go through. There's so many different things to take in consideration.
Do you feel,
space, so.
Tom, do you feel that Coolverse gets us to a different path there? Is it about the grind even I know we're not asking for alpha, but are we still on a grinding path with the feature games we're rolling out, or can we jump off that treadmill and get to a place where the game is entertaining and we're delighting people with the lore and the
So-
experiences through an interactive experience.
I'm not going to talk too much to Coolverse, but I do know that one of the core aims of Coolverse is basically be a really good user experience first. That's a core aim is to hit that mark. And the team have worked on many games before. They've got a vast experience in building awesome experiences. So without a doubt, I think they can definitely hit that. How that translates to actual value, I mean, you guys, I guess, just going to have to wait and see because I can't give too many details in terms of the alpha. But I mean, these are all things that are being taken into consideration for sure.
Gotcha. I know we have a ton of other accumulated questions here, but Timo, you want to wrap? Yeah,
hopefully quick one. And Tom, you may just be able to say like, no, can't comment on that. Sorry, but to the point of Cooltopia and value propositions, one of the big kind of keynotes here is return on investment, and as a result, MLIK. One of the big things that seemed to have an immediate and visceral price impact on not only the cats but also the pets was the correlation of MLIK and that expected ROI that folks who didn't come in just a game but instead viewed it as purely a financial investment. Those expectations that they had set, whether those were accurate or not, didn't end up getting met. And so I wanted to note that Tasty Snacks, and shout them out, had an awesome thread on this, which I hope you've either seen or get to see, that talks about his excitement of MLIK potentially going to zero value and bringing it back to this kind of initial intention of it being purely a utility token, like you and the team had always mentioned, rather than something with a financial vessel that correlates to your pet to being an earning item. So can you comment at all about what the team's considering regarding whether the liquidity pool potentially dries up, and what would happen then, or how you guys intend to get MLIK back to being just a pure utility token overall?
I think one of the key things for that is education, and trying to change the narrative, which I think is a very difficult thing to do, because when I talk about changing the narrative, I mean with regards to an ERC20 token, it doesn't have to be purely value driven, which I think a lot of people, as you said, they look at MLIK and they see it as what value can I get out of this, versus the intention for MLIK, which was a utility token. And there's I can't talk too much about the liquidity pool, and mainly because I can't talk about MLIK in terms of financial value, because we do have to push it as a utility token for various reasons, especially like when I'm talking about it in spaces like this. But I think if we're able to somehow, and this, like I said, it's tricky, if we are able to just let people know, like, MLIK is a utility token. Like, we're not pushing it for that specific value, and the community just always wanting to get the value out of it. It's a hard. If we do decide to do a flip and really push it for the value, then like a lot of mechanics have to change. I'm not saying that we're not looking at it or considering it. I'm just saying that it's a tricky endeavor for sure, because that was not the original intent. But as I said, when we did design the game out, we had all these other things in mind, World of Warcraft, grinding, RuneScape, that kind of stuff, Pokemon. And MLIK was one of those things that it just, obviously we missed the mark on how it was constructed. And I will say, I mean, because a lot of people have said, how is it so bad? Like, how is it so like out of alignment with what we expect? We've actually had, when we put everything on paper and we actually put it towards two tokenomics companies, both of them, and I'm not going to name them for obvious reasons because I don't think it's fair on them now, but both of them gave us a thumbs up. They're like, yeah, it's fine, go for it. So it's not like we didn't do our due diligence. It's just obviously the reality of what the community wanted versus what we were supplying. There's a misstep there for sure. I hope that answers your question. It's a little bit of a roundabout.
Yeah, no, and again, I appreciate any information we can get, and I know that, again, you guys, given the opportunity to just say, hey, how can we do this perfectly, would have, of course, chosen that.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, I mean, I just appreciate you coming up here and letting us voice these questions. I know it may feel occasionally antagonistic or anything like that, but I know, at least for me and everybody up on stage right now, any questions that are being asked are because we love this group. We love what this can become, know the power of it, and want to just help in any way possible. So thank you for hearing us out. And yeah, thanks, Tom. I'll let everybody else get back to it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the questions. I don't mind answering these questions. It's fine. Like, essentially, you guys are the investors. Like, everyone holding a token is an investor, and people who've bought them and sold them since, so have been investors. So we owe you guys some answers to questions.
Yeah, it's really tough because like Timo touched on is like a lot of people are here for different reasons. Some people like purely just want to make money off the cats, and some people are here because they love it, and then some people have a balance. So but you touched on the tokenomics companies. Were they more of like a crypto ecosystem like tokenomics auditor, or were they like a gaming tokenomics like reviewer? Like, kind of walk us through that outcome, and what are you guys looking to do differently, just gaming wise in general, with Coolverse from the lessons you learned in Cooltopia?
So the tokenomics companies, both of them, I'll call them tokenomics groups. There is a difference between the two, so I don't want to group them completely together. But both of them were crypto centric. So it's not like we went to a game specific company who gave us a thumbs up on, yes, this will work. It works for gaming. It'll work for crypto. So they were in the space, but they're all human too. Like, it's easy to make, like I said right at the start of all of this, it's actually really easy to make mistakes in the NFT space because it's so new and emerging. Like, what might work one week no longer works the next week. So for those who remember, the very early projects were launching on a kind of, I forgot what it's called now, basically a pricing scale. So those who got in early got it at a lower price, and then it went up and up and up and up. And that basically got eradicated. I believe Bored Apes were the first people to step out of that model. And then we ended up with like freedom mints and all this kind of stuff. And that model's going to change probably too at some point. Anything that we build, we're kind of testing the waters, and it can change very rapidly. In terms of what we're looking at to do with the Coolverse, I can only really say as much as we're looking for primary focus when it's being built out is to be an awesome experience for users. That's all I can really talk about, unfortunately. I can't give too much away. So sorry about that.
No, that's fine. And I think it's an important reminder to just like we're all in this huge experiment of Web3, right? And a lot of this stuff is unprecedented, and there's so many moving parts. Even if like you know how to design games, well, you're looking at 200 ERC20 now, so there's just so many different factors at play. So I obviously don't envy you, but as an observer, it's just very fascinating, and I try to leave y'all a bit of grace, but also kind of give my outside perspective and show the people who have their heads down building like, hey, this is kind of what it looks like from the outside. But I think we might transition a little bit into Cool Pets because I want to represent those holders, the people who bought Cool Pets at a mint price of 0.5. And like, obviously the floor is going to do whatever it is. And like having an actively trading market in this like early project is also a lot of hard work. But like, I do want to know, like, how are we going to honor the people who minted at like 0.5 or higher? Because in my eyes, that's a very expensive gaming token, and I bought like even more expensive gaming tokens than that. Like, I bought Zedrun. So like basically, yeah. So how do we kind of honor the people who bought Cool Pets on primary for 0.5 or something? Like, I don't care about pleasing secondary traders because secondary is going to do whatever, but like basically, how are you fulfilling your promises to Cool Pets holders when you made that primary sale?
So yeah, I'm 100% agreeing. Like, 0.5, we got to give some really good tangible value back for those people. Well, cool cats and cool pets alike. And I think one thing that we really need to work on, or at least there is definitely capability, is it doesn't have to be that value for cool pets doesn't have to be attached purely to the game, the web game or Coolverse. Like, we could attach, again, I'm going to go back to some hypotheticals, but if you think about it, we as we start branching out to kind of pull in this wider audience, not necessarily NFT related, as I kind of said before, like, your cool pet could be featured on a mobile game, could be featured in a storybook, it could be featured in something else. And not only could you then license out your pet to go on hoodies and whatever else, there's also an opportunity for us to help you along with that. One of the hardest things is actually getting sales rolling because of marketing. Like, we obviously have a fairly significant marketing engine, and we can help our users with that. And so value like that is something that we can definitely start pushing towards. Or, like I said, a hypothetical, I don't want to give any alpha away. Sorry, I keep repeating that, but those kind of things can be done without ever touching the game. And obviously then that kind of opens the door a lot for so much stuff. And then, we can also be looking at adding things to the game that it's not just an experience, as in terms of like grinding or gaming or whatever, but also, as like Timo kind of talked about, is having that value coming from the game. So these are all things that we are looking at and considering, and the best way to actually implement them. And some of these things have already started. Like I said, I'm not going to give too many details, but it's all about us trying to find a way to give you holders, doesn't matter what you're holding, of any of our stuff, value. So yeah, definitely a deep consideration of ours for sure, because there are, let's just say, 2/3 of our community are holding pets. We definitely can't sweep them under the rug. We've got to give them significant value. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's good to at least know that the pets are being thought about, and if whatever happens to the game, that they're still in everyone's mind. We're trying to bring value to them just as much as the cats. And like, generally, like, how do you picture how cool pets like fit into that hierarchy of the ecosystem versus cool cats and the new characters? Because I know I don't really like hierarchies, but when the game was even just developing, people were like, "Oh, cats need more utility," and then there was like, "No, pets need more utility." So how do you strike that balance of honoring the cool cats and the new cool characters and the cool pets all at once, and striking that balance?
I mean, that's a really good question, and I think the answer is pretty simple, to be honest. It's just like, we've got to give value to everything. Like, regardless of where you might see the hierarchy, they all need value. So be it financial value and or like notoriety within the space, our own space, Coolverse. So let's just imagine we fast forward a little bit of time and we now have the battle system out. Like, you might have a pet that has absolutely insane battle skills, and you now have notoriety because of that within the space. Like, that's some value for your pet. It's not financial value per se, unless you're able to sell your pet with stuff that you've gained for it. But that's value nonetheless. In terms of hierarchy, I mean, you're going to have those people who will always see cool cats as the genesis piece, like, no doubt, and they're always going to want that's the next thing for free, the next thing for free. And with cool pets, there's no reason that cool pets can't have their own genesis or be their own genesis. So we can start kind of exploring ways to add value in that regard as well. But in terms of how you might be able to see pets. I think initially we definitely thought of pets as like, well, they're the pets in terms of like the Pokemon world. Like you've got your trainer, which is the cat, and then you've got your pets, which is the pets. So you've got your Pokemon, which are the pets. That was definitely how we originally kind of pictured it in our minds, because it just made sense, because, you know, we've all played Pokemon and things, and that definitely made sense to us. But yeah, you're right. We do, and we are having to consider like that hierarchy and how value is considered and how we kind of build on both tokens. And we definitely never want to forget any tokens we bring out, to be honest. We never want to forget them, and we want to make sure everything does have value. Some things will have slightly more value than others. For example, things that we airdropped back in 2001, you know, you're not necessarily going to have those pumped up to have prime position on maybe like a film or something, but they can definitely have utility and therefore giving them value.
Thanks so much for answering that. Like, I'm really like happy that you're here and like answering all the questions that we've been just like on our mind for a long time. But like, here's a more fun one. Like, if you were a Cool Cats holder and weren't involved with it, like on the team or anything, like what would you want as a holder? What would you want to have done? What would you want to see happen as a holder only?
Oh, I want a button that I click and makes me millions. Done. I mean, that's
You're
what
one
a
of
lot of
those
people
holders,
here want.
huh?
That's what a lot of people here want, really. Like, so, no, like more seriously, I would want. So I only recently started to acquire some NFTs, but I've done it on behalf of my on behalf of my nephew. So I help out a lot of other projects with their contracts and stuff, and people say, oh, can I give you something as a thank you? And I just have to say, well, I can't accept it myself. Send it to my nephew's account. So I've got a few things for my nephew's account. And when I look through some of those communities, what I'm looking for, you know, ideally, if I was ever going to invest myself, is community. I think is one of the core things for me, because if you've got a really strong community, at the moment, the space is, sorry, when I say at the moment, I don't mean like the immediate bear market we're in. I mean just NFTs, say for example, like the past year or something. The market and everything surrounding it is so fluid. Nothing's really set in stone. But one thing that really is strong, and I know this from all the work I've done, like with other communities and projects I've worked over the years, as long as you've got a strong community, they can actually carry you through pretty much anything. As long as you're true to them, no matter what happens, like you can come out on top. But if you start forgetting your community and you start leaving them behind, like you lose so much, because now you've lost your marketing, because like everyone who loves your projects and stuff, as you bring stuff out, they're going to market it for you. As soon as you lose them, if you bring out a new drop, who's going to buy it? Like, your hardcore fans will probably just keep buying stuff you drop, but like, obviously you have to worry about dilution and all that kind of stuff. But like, if you don't have a community behind you, who's going to buy it? And as projects, they need that influx of money, right, to start to be able to build on top of things. So if you lose that, then you've now lost your funding source, essentially. Obviously, you can go out and get VC funded and all that. That comes with a lot of weight. And so community is so important. So even if a project has like terrible floor price, I'm not saying this in relation specifically to Cats or any other project, but as long as they've got a good solid community, and I can see that they have something that can stick. Cool Cats is a prime example of this. Like NFT NYC, like we had people coming in who didn't know anything about NFTs. They like just literally saw our street ads, and they walked in, and they walked in with like kids in strollers and stuff, and they were just connecting with the brand immediately, and they didn't care it was an NFT. They were just enjoying the whole experience, and that just proved like the power of the brand. And then we've got you awesome community like behind us. So yeah, if I was looking to get into an NFT project, like honestly, yeah, like not it sounds really biased, doesn't it? But yeah, I would jump into CoolCats. Like another one that I would jump into, honestly, I really do love, but I do love that, like the community and what they're building with regards to like Bored Apes. Like I think is really powerful. Another one that I honestly really like, just from mostly an art aesthetic at the moment, because I haven't had a huge amount of time to jump in, is I don't know how you pronounce it, like Boki or Boki. I think they're really cool. And there's a few other projects that I really like. One of which, by the way, is, and I don't think this guy gets enough love, is the Dudes. Like from a purely geeky tech side of stuff, and his community is insane, but like what he's building is just crazy. I love it. He is really pushing the boat out with like innovation, and he's just he's just not getting the love he deserves. He really isn't. So definitely go take a look at his stuff. Not that I'm trying to shill. It's just awesome.
It's totally fine.
Get
honestly,
this guy off the stage, shilling.
It's so true though, because like I've been in online communities that like basically the community had no say in like the direction of whatever product they were rallying around, but it was still a strong, vibrant community. And CoolCats was like one of the first ones that gave me that kind of vibe of people rallying around, just like the vibes, and it was great. But like, yeah, good night. If you wanted to touch more on like the community aspect and what's gonna be happening with the council, we can just do a few more follow-up questions.
Yeah. I think one question before we get to the council is on that point you guys just talked through around community and the broader conversation on where the missteps have been and what's to come and what's alpha and can't be disclosed. I think there's a general sentiment that, you know, if we go back in history a bit from like January onward, the team kind of went back and changed their communication approach, right? And that's always been a critique, that CoolCats has had challenging communications. You've brought on great people like Michaela to kind of have a vision and strategy around that. I think though, like when we talk about things like Coolverse and obviously not being able to disclose things with alpha, there is that general community sentiment that's even happening right now, which is like, hey, like, we get that it's like you can't disclose everything, but is there something you can tell us? How does CoolCats get to a point in terms of balancing the right amount of information to share versus not to share? Because in the past, that's obviously, I know you've been very public. You felt like that's burned you with giving too much information about Cooltopia, and then when it launched, giving kind of, you know, new release dates and all that didn't end up panning out so well because it kept getting pushed down more and more. So I think we've swung the pendulum like very far in the other direction. So I guess the question is, are we on a track to balance that? Because in all honesty, and hearing just even talking about Coolverse a bit, it sounds like we're still pretty secretive and closed off in disclosing pretty much anything.
Well, with Coolverse, like I can't really talk too much about it just because we really haven't put like the press release that I've seen together for exactly what information we're divulging at what point in time. And it's not something that we've ever said, okay, it's definitely coming out at this date. And so I don't want to give anything away prior to any marketing efforts that are put in place to kind of help promote it. So I'm basically deliberately staying well clear of talking about that because I don't want to step on any kind of marketing toes. But with regards to you talking about like the pendulum swinging one way or the other, again, I think this kind of falls back to that whole thing of the whole space is just so fluid. Some projects have done exceptionally well. Like, I mean, one really obvious example is like Bored Apes, right? But then obviously they get criticized as well in terms of like how much information they give out and when. Like there's at the moment a lot of people seem pretty anxious. They're holding on to Otherside land, and there's not a lot of information coming out about it. And we've been in that space. We are in that space of trying to figure out where that line is, because you've got all these people who are investing into projects, and sometimes it's not small sums of money. It's like, and to be honest, who's to say what a small sum of money is? Like $100 to me might not be like a huge amount, but like to someone else, it could be massive. So you can't really make that differentiation for your community. They decide for themselves. And coming up with, or at least giving them information that makes these people who are investors like feel comfortable with their investment, it's tricky, especially in the NFT space. Is especially tricky because everyone wants it. I mean, we've all seen it. When that, literally days after something is announced. Like someone announces a game and suddenly there's a pump. Because there's a pump, all those people who bought into it suddenly want to know when this, because they want to know where's the sell-off point. Like, how far can I ride this before I can start to take in profits? Because so I've done a fair bit of trading in terms of like binary options and stuff, and that's one of the things you look for is like, where's that point at which you stop rising the news cycle and like something bad starts happening, you jump out to take your profits. And because a lot of us are investors and coming over from crypto, and we're all starting to learn about riding the pumps and dumps and stuff, everyone wants the information like yesterday, because it informs their investments. And it's all about information at the end of the day, like be it true information or false information. We've all seen influencers pump something based on false information as well as true information, purely for profit. So us trying to find that balance between investor information and community information and just generally being well informed about what's happening, we're trying to find the right spot. We're trying to find that sweet spot. No matter where we land on that spot, it won't please everyone, because like I said, some people just want all the information for investment purposes, and some people want to keep it a little bit hidden because it adds that kind of speculation. So we're never going to hit it perfect for everyone, but sweet spot, we got to find it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, and I think I echo everyone's comments that, like being a startup, like you make 100 mistakes every day. Being in a non-startup, you probably make 100 mistakes every day. So I think you guys are always striving to learn from your lessons here. And similarly, I think as a community, like we also can strive to grow and be more understanding about a number of things too. Back to just decision making in general here. Can you help us dispel kind of like the myth and mythology behind like the founders? Like, how do you guys interact and make decisions together? Because I think when we think about it, broadly and generalistically, it's like, oh, Klon's the artist, he's the creative director, Tom's the game guy, and then, we kind of have these like preconceived notions. But obviously, you four are the founders, and you guys interact together to make decisions. What does that process look like? How are you guys sitting down and talking through things? And maybe there's a past example you can give in terms of how you guys come to consensus around things, or even disagreement around things, but push forward.
Yeah, sure. I think that is pretty important to kind of cover it. Like, as you said, like when anyone talks about tech, immediately they think about Tom and Rob. Tom and Link do all of that. I mean,
did we lose Tom there?
Finally came for him.
I say everybody who bet the under you're over. Yeah, sorry, over wins this one.
No.
Oh, over under was 23 minutes. So, GG.
Let's see.
That was about an hour, 10 minutes. That's not bad.
There he goes.
Let's see if he'll come back on stage here.
Yeah, he'll try to come back probably.
Well, anything, like, we still have questions left, but like, you want to stall? Like, what do we feel so far?
Is this a break?
Yeah, this is a brief intermission until one PSA. You have 40 minutes left to vote for the Cool Cats Community Council. So if you haven't nominated anyone yet, you can do so in the next 40 minutes.
Oh God, yeah. Ham's about to come up here and tell everybody why they should vote for him. So don't let him up here.
This is a campaign-free zone.
Someone search for Tom in the crowd.
Hold on, I'll see if I see him out there. I only see Jarvis. See Horn Dog. Queenie, Elu, Sean. I do want to say thank you to everyone that came by today. It was pretty big to me, and I think some of the other ones that are here, that we had someone like Tom, who is one of the founders, come on today and able to speak about what he can, and really just take all the questions that we have for him. I know Horn Dog and all the people in the chat were coming up with questions, people in the server. And so for Good Night to come up here and do this for us, thank you so much. And thanks everyone that came. Just wanted to say that real quick.
Love it, Sniper. Love everyone here too for coming in. I think Tom message, he said he is coming back in.
All right.
So we'll
Yeah,
just,
I'm really excited about the council because I think it kind of sprung from the spaces, and the team kind of was like, hey, they're giving us like so much free input that maybe we should make it an official thing. And even I want people to know, like, if you don't win the council vote, like, your voices will still be heard. We want to like have as many opinions as possible and like really just represent the community as best we can.
I mean, Hawker, I'd second that. Our whole job and our whole intention as folks on the council is to take and synthesize all the valid concerns in the Discord, on Twitter, that we're seeing, that we're hearing, and present them to the team. Because again, if they don't know or can't, kind of sort through all of it and have it presented in a way that's actionable and feasible, then there's no way that change could ever be made in general. So I think all of us, I mean, I'll speak for myself, and if anybody else wants to hop in too, but yeah, I think we all have open door policy. Just come chat with us, let us know, good, bad, ugly, and we're here for it.
I will say,
I think we got Tom. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say we got Tom back on stage. Tom, you there?
Yep. Hello. Sorry about that.
Okay. We almost made it. I do be conscious of time. We have a little bit left, so we'll just round out kind of the few remaining questions. But I think the one we had just asked that where you got cut out was just talking about how you founders make decisions and whether that's towards agreement or disagreement, but pushing forward either way.
Okay. I don't know what you heard up to, but I'll just cut to the...
We heard nothing.
Oh, you heard nothing?
We heard nothing.
Brilliant. Okay. Damn. I didn't realize it was that bad. Okay. So I'll try to go really quickly. So basically, when we make decisions, firstly, I don't know if you guys caught anything with regards to, dev not only just being me and Link, but people hear the word dev, like I believe you said, the Good Night, and they just think, oh, that's Tom and Link. But we've got like there's a whole team of devs, right? It's not just us working on stuff. And like Link's now moved on to kind of world building. He is a CSS god, but he's moved on to the world building just because he much prefers kind of creating that world for you guys. So when it comes to kind of decision making, I mean, normally what happens is somebody might have an idea. We kind of draft a proposal, we submit the proposal, and then we discuss it. And then we kind of just sculpt that into something that can be executed upon. We might tear the proposal down because there might be some ideas in there that we don't all agree on, or we've got different consensus on it. But yeah, I mean, that works for us disagreeing with stuff and agreeing with stuff. So it's very collaborative, and we generally, obviously we've got the board involved as well. So stuff can basically move up to the board from there if it needs board approval. But that's generally how it works. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
What happens when you guys don't agree on stuff? Like, is this kind of like a voting, like 3 out of 4 outvoted, or is it everyone needs to come to consensus on stuff? I'm curious.
Generally, we just try to talk through ideas and just say, well, I think this approach might work better, and here's why, and then we'll just talk through it and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We generally don't come to any like I'm going to call it aggressive disagreements when someone feels particularly in one direction and nobody else does. I mean, occasionally, like, we are people, that kind of stuff does happen, but generally it's through this kind of whole process I've just outlined. It's pretty simple and honest to each other.
Gotcha. If I could use an example, like obviously like town halls, I think many understand. I think some were saddened and disappointed to hear that town halls moved to a more infrequent basis there. So Is this like a decision that flows up to the founders and the founders make the decision? I'm curious just kind of like how something like that gets decided and plays out across the company.
Well, we do have, so when I was talking about the kind of process we have in place, that's an idea might start with the founders and then kind of spread out from there as well. And we have other people who would kind of inject their expertise and opinions in things as well. So it's not only always just the founders. So with certain decisions, it kind of ends, it might go to the broader management team as well. And we kind of talk things through and kind of figure it out. So that, yeah, that's just basically how that should, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and I guess you keep mentioning the management team. Is that like Ken and
oh,
team?
sorry,
Ken Cron?
sorry, I haven't really specified. So like management team is like, obviously we've got different departments. So we've got like an art department, comms creative director. We've got different.
I see. Your leadership team, essentially.
Exactly, the leadership team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like I said, we've got different people who've been brought on specifically for their expertise, who might also be called upon to ask their opinion on, do you think this is a good idea or not? And they'll give their opinion.
Gotcha. Since I did bring up Ken Cron, and obviously it was kind of a long journey to disclose that he was part of advising Cool Cats. These days, like, are in the past, I guess, since we're not talking about alpha or anything of the sort, where do you look to folks like Ken for guidance and helping to push the brand forward?
So Ken, as some of you may or may not know, was like pivotable. Not the word I'm looking for. He was a core component in how like World of Warcraft came to be. And that's just one of the big kind of titles that people know about that he's actually been involved in. He's got a plethora of experience in kind of the business world, Web 2 world, and like also he's helping out with Web 3 in a number of different projects. As some people have mentioned him being on like the board of Animoca and stuff, like, which is public knowledge. And so if we ever need to do anything specific or like another company wants to work through us, a lot of times we will go get advice from Ken, or he'll just say, I think this is a great idea, guys. We should go for this, and put something on the table in front of us, because he has that wealth of knowledge and the wealth of connections.
Gotcha. And I don't know, I think this is an elephant in the room question that I don't know if it ever got answered, but it ties into what I was asking earlier about just swinging the other way with the pendulum and not communicating certain things. Why did it take so long to let the community know that Ken Cron was involved?
It all came down to us trying to find, honestly, kind of the right time. Because I don't know if people remember, but there was a time when if any project ever mentioned any kind of investor, they just get shot down. They're like, well, that's not the Web3. What's not what Web3 space is about. Web3 space is about like building it on your own, or the community, putting the money in. And so talk of investors, VC or otherwise, was just like a big no-no. So really trying to just find the right time to talk about it.
Gotcha. How do you think you've changed as a person over this past year for the better or the worse, with all the experiences that you've had?
Oh, no, what a question. I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. Like, I'm older than most of you might realize. So I've done a lot of work through like lots of other projects before. So like the way that I work is very kind of, I wouldn't say set in stone, but it's definitely a process that's kind of been like fine-tuned over time and working through different things. Not that I'm saying it's perfect by any means, it's just, it's been chiseled. But so that's kind of like working, not changed a huge amount, especially from a tech perspective, because you have to be pretty, you have to be extremely detail orientated, and so you can't miss stuff. So that kind of changing, that kind of work process hasn't really changed. But in terms of a person, definitely more stressed. I think so. I think wouldn't surprise anybody. I don't get to do some of the stuff I like in doing quite as much. That's definitely true. I don't know. That's a hard question. I think I'd have to ask someone. I think I'd have to ask someone who knows me in person to answer that question, how I've changed. Because I think it's always hard to gauge yourself, isn't it?
That's fair. We'll let you off the hook this time with that existential question. There are a few more questions around that, but I know that Hawkward earlier mentioned like the CoolCats Community Council. I think for the ones of us that are on it, super excited for it in representing the community's interests, not like our interests. It's like, I think we, even just in this list of questions, hopefully show that, you know, we're listening to the community in terms of like what their concerns are here too. What led to that idea, and what are you hoping that the council can help accomplish?
So I'll be completely honest, the council has been an idea since November 2021. Like Kat Cole's actually been a member of the council for quite a long time. I think she was the first official, I think she's the first official member. And it just took a while to get everything else in place. Not because it specifically took a long time to get the council in place. It's just all the other bits and pieces we've been working on. Like now's a good time to do it. And one of the things, it's actually, I love reading all the tweets and the stuff about what the council's going to do. Some of them are brilliant. Like people are going to have one-on-one with Ken. Like they're going to get into all the founders meetings and stuff. What we kind of thinking with the council, and I believe we're going to be putting out some kind of more detailed information about this. So I'll give a bit of a broad overview. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we are going to be putting in some information out about this pretty soon. But basically, we've got pretty much everything we've communicated in this Spaces is kind of prime council stuff, really. It's how does the community feel about the current situation? How does the community feel about maybe this potential shift? How does the community feel about if we were to go in this direction? Or not even just the community, like how do you feel, like individual council members? Like that's important too, not always just a look at the community, because individual council members have also been chosen for specific reasons. Like some of them have got fantastic business acumen. Some of them have been like crypto traders. Some of them have been in the NFT space for a long time, or like OGs in multiple projects. Some of them, like, you know, they don't have that particular level, and especially, well, and there's a 2 question mark people who could come in. And we wanted to leave those slots open to be a community choice, because what if some of the people that we chose for the council didn't represent a particular population of our community? And it's very important that we do that so that we have a view from everybody, from every perspective. And so the council is basically crafted to help us have that perspective on things that we might not always see. And that can help us to craft the new direction. It can help us to kind of chisel away at a current feature or something that we're doing that doesn't quite work, but might just need a tiny tweak. More brains are better than, you know, multiple brains are better than one. And so this is kind of a step in that direction. And it's really important to give our community a voice, not just on Twitter, but like a deeper voice as well.
That's great. I think everyone's excited about it. Even people outside the community have kind of taken a look and said, hey, should our project do this as well too? So it's very excited for the future there. Along that lines of community, like this community in some ways has been through the ringer, like with not talking about just like prices and things like that, but also just in the broader NFT ecosystem, just with the challenges you guys have had, the community's felt those challenges too, whether interacting with other people in the NFT space, etc. But there's still so many people that are core to the community of Cool Cats and staying strongly committed. Like, what do you think has kept that together?
I think one of the first things, or a very key thing, is when we launched Cool Cats, we always said community first, and we really kind of tried really hard to drive that. And a lot of you will remember like the founders being in Discord chatting, like just being really like kind of boots on the floor, like talking to the community, getting feedback, and really trying to like get involved as much as we possibly can. Because I mean, we're in this journey from the start with you guys. Like as I said, we launched initially as a kind of a weekend project, and we had a lot to learn to start off with. Of course we did. NFT space was new. We were finding our feet. You guys were finding your feet. And we wanted to do that together. And I think, kind of moving forward, it's important that we kind of get back more towards that kind of. It's hard, but it's hard to get back to that because obviously we've gotten bigger, scaled, and everything. And sometimes it's difficult to find the time to kind of get in, boots on the ground, and start chatting. But we definitely want to have that feeling. And I think going through the ringer and everyone's kind of sticking with Cool Cats I think people have just felt that we've grown together. Like there's definitely a core part of the audience who are just like, yeah, I'm in this, this is my cat for life. Like I've grown here. This is my introduction to the NFT space. I think about it, I mean, this might be a weird analogy for some people, but I think about it as like the McDonald's effect. Like maybe you remember as a kid going and playing in the ballpark in McDonald's or whatever. Maybe I'm kind of showing my age here, but then as an adult, you're like, yeah, happy memories. McDonald's is happy memories. And so you go back because of that. And that's not by accident. They designed it that way. They knew what they were doing. Rope them in early and keep them. And I think we've kind of accidentally, deliberately kind of done that with the community. And hopefully as we progress forward and we expand out and we grow and we pull more people in from the non-NFT people, we can do the same thing with them and just have this kind of snowball community, which will obviously come with its own complications. Like a growing community is a tricky thing to manage. Like imagine we drop paper cats, for example, like infinite mint on paper cats, and we get like a massive influx. Like we have to manage that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we want to be conscious of time, and we're kind of out of time right now here. And there are a ton of questions like we could have asked about paper cats too, about other things, but want to be respectful of your time too. The last thing is just, is there anything, close to 100 people here in the spaces, and I think we were up to like 130 at one point. Is there anything you want to say to the community here? Loyal fans, people who were very excited to hear you speak today. Is there any last things you would just want to leave for the community here to say?
Mostly just thank you everyone for your time, your patience, your understanding, like all the shout outs of like, we love the cats, we love the whatever, we love the pets, like all of that, just the community vibe. I think it definitely keeps us going in some of those like harder times where we just turn around and be like, okay, yeah, you know what, like we've got the community behind us. They love some of the aspects of what we're doing, and obviously we've got some things to change, but the community will always tell us where we've done a misstep, and honestly, thank you for that. For example, Goodnight, like obviously a lot of people have said you guys need to bring the Goodnight onto your team, but honestly what you're doing is extremely valuable, and some of that value could be lost if we were to bring you into the fold, as it were, because people then see the things that you might be doing as jaded or like biased, and what you're doing is invaluable because it gives us that clear, direct line to listen in as you communicate with the community. So thank you for that. And everyone else is doing equal things. I know Sniper, you do that too. I know like a lot of people have very candid conversations on Twitter, and we troll through them and we appreciate them. We definitely go through them. We don't always talk about them because there's a lot of them. we can't individually thank everybody, but yeah, thank you all for that because it helps us build.
That's great. Tom, we can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us for the spaces and answering a ton of these very honest and many tough questions. And we appreciate just your thoughts, your openness about it too. And we hope this isn't the last time we all have a spaces with you, and would love to pull you back in the future as we continue to see more from the gaming side and the contract side and everything else from CoolCats.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a pleasure. I mean, I know people said apologies if this is going to feel like a, you know, you're pummeling me with hard questions, but honestly, no, it's been a pleasure. I've definitely enjoyed it.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm glad folks from the UK were able to join as well too. We'll continue with our community spaces again next week at our regularly scheduled time and talk through some exciting things around the nominations and everything else that's happening in CoolCats. So thanks again, Tom. Thanks for everyone on stage, Sniper, Hawkward, Zupa, Taimo. It's been fun, and we like the cats.
Yeah, we like the cats.
We
Thank
like
you very much, everyone.
We
and
love
the pets.
And the pets, of course, and the pets. Yeah.